Tonight, Trump's America. As we get a better sense of his agenda and his cabinet choices, are you feeling more frightened or optimistic given the last 24 hours? We will take your calls and we'll bring you into our conversation. Then, Trump's America, making the nation hate again. Well, that's what some people are saying. Students being heckled, told that they're going to be deported, and even swastikas popping up here, all in the wake of Trump. And later, yes, the Donald is our next president, but Hillary Clinton, she won more votes, at least when it comes to the popular vote. It's the second time in 16 years that has happened to Dems. The question is, does the Electoral College really work? We will debate. And good evening, everybody. Welcome to RFL. I am Richard French. Thank you so much for joining us this Thursday night. This today, many Americans never saw coming. I'll put my hand up. I'm one of them. And nonetheless, we have a new president-elect here, and the nation, if you thought it was divided before here, I think it's split or cleaved even more. Many are all wondering what is happening next. Today, at least, the president and the president-elect, they were at the White House, visiting with, of course, not just each other, but also members of both their incoming team and the outgoing team, sharing top-secret briefings and also beginning to sketch out what maybe his administration, his agenda, and also Trump's cabinet will look like. Now, as we try to sort all this out, we want to hear from you. So here it is, everybody. We take phone calls once in a while, and I thought tonight a very appropriate one. There's a lot of concerns. There's a lot of optimism about what the next 4 years may hold. But regardless, I want to get your thoughts and also what makes you either frightened or optimistic about what the Trump years promise. And you see the toll-free number there, 888-766-2428. And our phone lines are open right now, so I suggest you get on them quick before they get jammed. We're going to bring in those conversations in just a few minutes. But first, let's get to the latest news. That is Donald Trump goes to D.C. today to meet with the president and also to step inside the White House for the first time as president-elect. The peaceful transition of power.
We now are going to want to do everything we can to help you succeed, because if you succeed, then the country succeeds.
This is what makes American democracy extraordinary.
I very much look forward to dealing with the president in the future, including counsel.
After an extremely contentious election campaign, President Obama and President-elect Donald Trump, they met together in the Oval Office for an hour and a half, their bitter wounds apparently healing.
So, Mr. President, it was a great honor being with you.
Signaling to the nation the ideal of country over party.
Very good man. Thank you, guys.
But it is an ideal that is often difficult to achieve. President-elect Donald Trump pledged to his supporters to roll back much of the work of the Obama administration, just like Obama had done to his predecessor. The president-elect also traveled to the Capitol to meet with Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell and adversary from within the Republican Party, Speaker of the House Paul Ryan, who showed him where he will be inaugurated and discuss what they plan to do when that happens.
Whether it's health care or immigration, so many different things. We'll be working on them very rapidly.
Meanwhile, we wanted to continue to wait and speculate on just who the president-elect will appoint to his cabinet and other top-level administrations in positions, as I say, into the soon-to-be Trump administration. Now, among the names we are hearing here, Newt Gingrich for Secretary of State, Rudy Giuliani for Attorney General, just let that one sink in, Jeff Sessions, who not only supported the Iraq War and wanted continual surges there, but also protested an anti-war protest. Well, he is being mentioned for Defense Secretary. RNC Chairman Reince Priebus could be Chief of Staff. There's also another name I'll tell you about shortly, Chris Christie, who's also chairing the Trump transition team. Let's assume he will not be Transportation Secretary. I kid. Ben Carson for Health and Human Services, or Surgeon General, or even Education Commissioner. That's being proffered up there. And if you are wondering where Trump will fall on the business versus consumer divide, how about Chase CEO Jamie Dimon for Treasury Secretary, or Lucas Oil CEO Forrest Lucas for Interior? Trump reportedly wants climate change skeptic Myron Abel to serve as the EPA administrator. And late this afternoon, multiple sources reporting that Trump wants this guy, and if you don't know him when I say the next few words, I think it might jog your memory. Breitbart CEO and Trump campaign CEO Steve Bannon to be his chief of staff. Now, Breitbart, under Bannon, authoring headlines like the following: birth control makes women unattractive and crazy. Gabby Giffords, remember she, the Arizona congresswoman who was shot and nearly killed here? The gun controls movement's human shield, he described her as. Trannies have higher rates of HIV, and he called Bill Kristol a renegade Jew. There is much more here that is attributable to Breitbart, but he also attacked the Republican Party for not having a spine and not being true conservatives and never concerning them true Americans. These are some of the dialogue that have come from the Breitbart ambit. Now, we're also waiting to see what the president-elect decides to focus on in those first 100 days. Now, here are some of the things that he has already posted on his campaign website under 100 days, including nominating a Supreme Court justice, a conservative in the mold of one Antonin Scalia, deporting 2 million or more undocumented immigrants, suspending immigration either of all Muslims or enacting what he calls extreme vetting of people from regions where there is terrorism, massive tax cuts, especially for the top end, funding for a border wall, term limits for Congress, and canceling all payments to the UN for efforts to stop climate change. And again, these are on his own website. Trump can also undo a slew of key policies and programs that President Obama fought for, including and especially Obamacare. He also wants possibly to use executive orders when it comes to immigration, deportations, law enforcement, the environment, and also reversing regulations on Wall Street. Remember what happened after 2008, as well as health and the environment. He also has been discussing, or those close to him, defunding so-called sanctuary cities like New York, and also U.S. trade deals, energy restrictions, regulations, enabling more fracking and coal mining, and he can also overturn the cancellation, or so he hopes, of the Keystone Pipeline. Also, don't forget about TPP, that trade proposal that's all but dead in arrival in Congress right now. It would be a pretty dramatic shift to the right on some of those policies I've just laid out, but Trump will not be inheriting a UN, a United Nation, I should say, not nations as the international landscape, but a country that is together. In fact, I think you have to struggle to find one more divided, at least in recent times. He did, however, not win the popular vote. And in fact, as of right now, Clinton has received 288,000 more votes than Donald Trump. That's more people than live in the city of Newark, New Jersey, to give you as a frame of reference, which may explain why people have been protesting the election results in cities across the country. Now, we're going to get to your phone calls, the toll-free line you've seen right there on the program. What do you think of both his plans, some of the people that he'll surround himself with closest confidants, and whether or not you think he'll be the change agent America either needs, or you are very scared about the changes he, in fact, might bring? All right, let's bring in our panel right now. Richard Brodsky joins me, a former Democratic New York Assemblyman, now senior fellow at Demos and a professor at NYU. Dominic Carter, political journalist and author. Former Republican turned conservative strategist Bill O'Reilly, and Andrew Whitman, our senior political correspondent. All right, so much to unpack there. So more than putting everybody on specific paths, I'll start this way and work my way around. I think some of the best of America was on display today, that we're not a banana republic, and no matter the divisions, we can have a transfer of power where adults can sit around a table and say, I disagree, but I want what's best for the nation, and I'm going to help you with the transition. And I don't think that was empty rhetoric. I think it started yesterday when Hillary Clinton acknowledged defeat, and also I think even before that, Don Trump, he not only accepted her concession, but thanked her for a well-fought campaign. And then the president yesterday with his address as to what the nation should commonly strive for. But commonality may end there, even after what I thought was a productive meeting behind closed doors, or at least seemed to be. An agenda, and I think to me more, Bill, who will be framing these decisions from a candidate that for the better part of a year has not shown an interest, forget about indiscipline to message, but to surround himself by people that he's willing to be challenged by or informed by, and to be, forget about a policy wonk, somebody who wants to really know what's going on at a time where knowledge is critical in a ever-changing world. I don't know where we go next from here, but I think the scary part is nobody does.
Yeah, I think you're right. The people at the top, and when I say that, I mean President-elect Trump, former Secretary Clinton, and President Obama have all set the right tone and said the right things. Underneath, on the streets, there are things going on, but I think all three of them have handled the last 48 hours very, very well, and they've reminded Americans of the peaceful transfer of power. Republicans, there's great optimism that Trump can push some things through early that they want, that I want.
Yep.
The question is what happens then. Foreign policy questions are out there. We'll just have to see. We'll have to see who those appointments are. There's a lot of rumors floating around now, but we'll have to see. And we would hope. I'm not up for anything, not at this point, But we have to hope that he does take advice from those around him, and that there's good, solid people picked.
The only thing that I laugh at today, Andrew, from all the people is it's a new Trump. Look at him since the last 2 days. Look at the sober-minded voice. Look at the calm exterior, saying all the right things. We've had, for better or worse, the better part of almost a year and a half to see him under the glare of the hot lights, the microphones, the ability to say anything and everything to an audience, and without a scintilla of contrition. The idea that was then and this is now, and we didn't have a window into this guy is, give me a break.
Look, let's go back to Trump as a developer, as a real estate guy. He's a terrific salesman. He gets people to sign on the dotted line. He gets people to buy into Trump University or whatever it is that he's selling. It's the delivery of the promise where he's fallen short over the years, whether it's people complaining about the buildings that they purchased or people not getting the education that they want. Trump as a politician has been a very effective salesman, one of the most effective salesmen we've seen in some time. Will he deliver on the promises that he made? We did see a more conciliatory, a more presidential Trump on Tuesday night and again today.
Yep.
But the proof is in the pudding, and when you start running that list of names that we ran before about possible cabinet appointments, that gives you an idea of where he's probably going. And that's not the Trump we saw Tuesday night or saw today.
And also the same guy who said yesterday we need to bind the wounds of the country. That, you could argue, is pouring some gas in the fire. Now, Dominic, to me, what I think is there's some more headlines that come out today, that there was coordination from the campaign, the Trump campaign, with Moscow. That's going to have a leg of its own. It's going to go somewhere. The Attorney General today in New York, he made clear that he's moving ahead with investigations for Trump U. And, by the way, the courts seemingly removed one of the impediments for the investigation. It's moving ahead right now. Where do you think the next 60 days go for him? Because I heard Ryan say, and I laughed, that we're United Party Republicans now, and he's got a mandate. If he governs that way in the beginning without an outreach to, I've heard other people say this, so I'm stealing the idea, and I thought I was going, reach out to John Lewis, right? And talk to him, have an audience with him, try and repair some of the damage for the campaign that had people crying that you saw firsthand, not just the Clinton folks, but people worried about being deported right now, about people worried about not having a place in this country. He's got to do some of that, or does he govern like he really has a mandate in the next 2 months?
He's going to govern like he has a mandate. Whether that's right or wrong, that's what's going to happen. But, Richard, you can't change the poisonous rhetoric of the campaign. Look at what happened in more than a dozen American cities last night. Thousands of people turning out to protest the president-elect. He hasn't enacted a single policy yet. What's going to happen when the likes of Rudy Giuliani, God help us all, comes back into office? Chris Christie possibly in some obscure position, but enough to still make headlines. What happens when they regurgitate all of these folks that basically left under scandal when they were around in their time? The president-elect finds himself, see, to understand Donald Trump is to understand this was all a game to him. It was a game, and he won. He won, Richard. He won the game, unfortunately.
Listen, regardless of your politics and regardless of whether or not you can't stand the guy or love the guy, he's got to fill not only a whole cabinet here, and he's doing it from the outside. None of the names we're hearing about, I guess with the exception of Sessions, right, Senator Sessions, they've all been on the sidelines. And he's got to fill more than 1,000 jobs, really 2,000 jobs, but at least half of that he got to hit the ground running on.
Filling jobs is not a problem.
But filling it with people who know Washington, today's Washington,
he may
that
not
will
want
be.
people who know
he
today's
doesn't want
Washington. And he may be very proud of that. I think there are going to be some things you can look for that will define what happens. First of all president-elects, and not just Donald Trump, are one mistake away from losing the goodwill of the American people. He's got to be very careful that he gets into January on his feet. And he has a record of bumping into things. But look for the following. Look for what he does to Paul Ryan. There is every reason in the world for him to try to take out Paul Ryan. And that is to show how tough he can be and what the cost is if you cross him. A lot of people would say it's in his political interest to take out Paul Ryan. Look for what the response is about prosecuting Hillary. Rudy Giuliani was the leading
And there were
exponent of
conflicting
that.
angles to that. Chris Christie said, let's not litigate the past, let's move to the future here. Basically the sign, let's move on past Hillary. Rudy Giuliani today, this morning, in fact, to your point, said, well, let's not move so fast. Let's look at these charges.
Those two things,
Yep.
I think, are going to be
Interesting.
where the wind is blowing. But in the end, the issue isn't his policies, because a lot of his policies will be attractive to most Americans. If he really does something about corporate elites.
No, he's already hinted that infrastructure will be one of the first things that he's going to do out of the
I
gate.
don't doubt that, but I don't know that that's defining. Whether he continues to take on big corporate America.
You just heard what he said. He wants to remove regulations for the financial industry. How exactly is that cracking their knuckles?
Well, I didn't. Let's see what happens.
All right.
It's a day later.
All right, now after a quick break here, we, the five of us, are going to bring you into the program and give you an equal voice here. Trump's America. Are you frightened of what it might bring? Are you optimistic about the changes that may come with it? 38766-2428, right to the phone lines after this.